It seems like we're constantly seeing stuff on the news about persecution of Christians around the world. The World Evangelical Alliance estimates that 200 million Christians every year are persecuted for their faith, and that number has actually doubled since 2013. And I don't envy anybody in one of those positions. And yet, living in America presents sort of its own precarious nature to Christian life. And the reason I say that is because about 10 years ago, a Christian researcher by the name of George Barna, who researches all sorts of religious stuff, he wrote a book called The Seven Faith Tribes. And in that book, he said that everybody in our country can fit fairly nicely into one of 7 different categories. By far, the largest category was people who self-identified as Christians. 79% of Americans, when push comes to shove, if they have to label themselves, will call themselves a Christian. What Barna also found in that data, however, was kind of interesting in that only 18% of the people who were polled said that they would be willing to compromise their lives in any kind of significant ways because of their personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That means they were willing to sacrifice their time and energy, their relationships, their money, their health, maybe even their life itself. 18%. So when you push those two numbers together, the 79% who self-identify as Christian and the 18% who say they're willing to inconvenience their life because of their personal relationship with Jesus, you get 61%. That's the majority of our country. The average person in America is somebody who self-identifies as a Christian, calls himself a Christian, but isn't willing to inconvenience their life in any measurable way because of their attachment to Jesus Christ. Now, we can't do a whole lot about what goes on out there in the country. The only thing we can do is right here. And so you and I have to ask ourselves questions that might get at the heart of our idolatry. For instance, have you ever thought for yourself something along the lines of, if I only had blank, then I would be faithful to God? Whatever's in that blank, whatever's on the other side of that if only, that's the thing in your life that God is trying to get access to right now. When Jesus died, he didn't just allow a part of himself to die. He didn't just give you a little bit. He gave you the whole thing, the whole piece of heaven. Jesus died so that, as the Apostle Paul says in Romans 8, we can share in the full extent of his glory. He gave everything for you and me. Just imagine that. Jesus one day was in heaven looking around, had absolutely everything, but he was just missing one thing. And he looked down to earth and he saw you and he says, "You're it. I'm willing to sacrifice it all in order to get you." Now, doesn't that seem like the kind of guy that you can trust with every square inch of your life?
If you're anything like me, you love the Grace Talks. I love hearing what the guys have to say about God and his incredible love for us in Jesus. But if you're anything like me, you might not have time to just sit down and give your full attention to a screen. You might catch these messages as you're driving, running, working out, folding the laundry, whatever. And that's why we're so happy to give you all this content in a great audio podcast. By clicking that button, you can get connected to our podcast, which will bring more Jesus, more grace, more talking about our Savior into your ears, and we hope into your heart each day. So click the button, get connected to God's grace, and hope you have an amazing day.